When people suffer a broken heart or are betrayed, they grow horns. But in David Jones' case, he grew tentacles and was forced to sail the seas for 10 years, allowed to set foot on land only once. So why was David Jones forbidden from going ashore? Why did he turn into half man, half seafood? To achieve those tentacles, how much painstaking effort did the film's production team put in? Let's find out together in today's video. Although the villain of the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, Davy Jones is arguably even more beloved than a Will Turner or Elizabeth Swann. The reason Jones receives love from the audience surely comes from their sympathy for his turbulent love story. The truth is, Davy Jones was not born with tentacles. You could imagine them as the scars left on Jones after a broken relationship. Davy Jones' unhappy love story began when his heart was still human. Back in the day, our Captain Jones was a brave man, a fearsome sailor unafraid of any strange waters. As mighty as he was, Jones was still human and he knew how to love. For some reason, Jones fell in love with the sea goddess Calypso, a mortal loving a god. Surely this story would have a good ending. But no. To be with Calypso, Jones had to accept sacrificing his own destiny and taking on the task of ferrying the souls of those who died at sea to the next world. However, with difficulty came meaningful gifts. If Jones agreed to perform the duty for 10 years, he and his beloved would be together for one whole day on land. When that day came, the only day Jones was allowed to set foot ashore after 10 long years, Calypso was not there. Lonely and despairing, all the pain in Jones' heart turned into anger and resentment. Believing Calypso had betrayed him, Jones planned his revenge. He sought out the pirate lords at Shipwreck Cove to persuade them to contain Calypso. With Jones' guidance, the First Brethren Court was able to imprison Calypso in a mortal body. And thanks to Jones, the vast ocean now belonged to the pirates. He had his revenge, but Davy Jones' heart still belonged only to Calypso. Tormented, Jones carved out his own heart and dedicated the rest of his life to the Flying Dutchman. Let us briefly explain the ghost ship the Flying Dutchman for you before we continue. In the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, we know that Davy Jones is the captain of this ship. But with its ability to travel underwater like a submarine, combined with countless cannons mounted along both sides and the bow, the Flying Dutchman is the terror of all ships, large and small. Historically, however, the Flying Dutchman actually belonged to a Dutch captain named Van der Decken. Desiring to return to Amsterdam as quickly as possible, Van der Decken sailed the ship around the Cape of Good Hope. But unfortunately for him and his entire crew, a great storm arose and swallowed them all. After that event, it was rumoured that the Flying Dutchman was cursed and would never be able to make port forever. Not only that, any vessel that encountered this ghost ship would also meet a tragic end. Okay, let's return to the life of David Jones. After carving out his heart and hiding it, Davy Jones also placed a curse on his heart. Anyone who stabs that heart must replace Jones and become the captain of the Flying Dutchman. It is this curse that corrupted Jones' physical body, which gradually became a part of the ship itself. This explains his half-man, half-sea creature appearance, as Jones now has to endlessly drift on the open sea with the ship. After all these misfortunes, Davy Jones also abandoned the work Calypso entrusted to him. Instead of ferrying the souls of the departed to the next world, Jones chose to rescue those on the brink of death, offering them a chance to live for 100 years in service aboard the Flying Dutchman. Casting aside his heart and his humanity, Jones became cruel and cold-blooded. He was once a man who lived for love, but now became the fear of all sailors everywhere. If you were unfortunate enough to be captured by Jones, you had only two choices: serve on the Flying Dutchman or die. But even if you were allowed to live to serve the ship, that life was arguably worse than death, as you would constantly be beaten by the first mate. And worse still, under Davy Jones' curse, you would become one with the Flying Dutchman and eventually forget your true identity completely. We mentioned earlier that after betraying Calypso, Jones regretted it and carved out his heart, storing it in a chest. As long as nothing happens to that heart, Davy Jones will be immortal forever. However, Jones can still feel all physical pain when stabbed or slashed. Even when Jack Sparrow slices off a tentacle, it's essentially Jones' beard and he still feels the pain. In addition to immortality, David Jones also possesses fascinating abilities such as phasing through objects, superior physical strength, and most notably, the ability to control his tentacle beard to grasp objects, smoke a pipe, and in some cases eliminate someone. Furthermore, Davy Jones commands an extremely dangerous crew. They are as capable and powerful as Jones himself. They can even go ashore to carry out missions that Jones cannot directly handle. Additionally, the crew members of the Flying Dutchman can mark those who owe their captain with a black spot. Davy Jones uses the black spot as a way to track his debtors, and only Davy Jones can remove it. And if someone still decides to cross Jones, such as Jack Sparrow, he will release his monster, the Kraken, to drag the debtor to the next world. As mentioned in At World's End, Jack Sparrow was trapped in Davy Jones' locker after being swallowed by the Kraken. According to the film, the concept of Davy Jones' locker refers to an alternative dimension where all of Davy Jones' debtors are eternally imprisoned. Here's an interesting piece of information for you. Davy Jones' locker is a real concept, referring to the bottom of the ocean, or a euphemism for sailors and ships that have perished at sea. However, the origin of this phrase is unclear where and when it originated. We only know that it first appeared in a formal text in 1726, in the book A New Voyage Round the World by Captain George Roberts, pennied by the writer Daniel Defoe. Before we delve into the myth of David Jones, I have good news for you. The film watching website is back up and running. If you want to keep up with the latest hot news in the film industry, discover interesting stories from behind the camera, or enrich your knowledge of the seventh art, don't forget to visit our website. That's not all. If you want to join lively discussions full of fresh, insightful perspectives on cinema, quickly hit join on our fan club and follow the Film Page's Facebook. The link will be provided below. Okay, back to David Jones. The Pirates of the Caribbean franchise has told us clearly about Davy Jones. But do you know that in history and legends, the origin of the name Davy Jones is actually very vague? There are many different theories to explain the name Davy Jones. According to history, in the Indian Ocean around the 1630s, a pirate named David Jones once appeared. However, historians suggest that this character was not influential enough to become such a significant figure. Also, according to historians' research, the story of the name David Jones might have originated from a British pub owner in the 16th century. This man specialised in getting his customers drunk, either to lock them up and drown them at the docks, or to sell them to traders for extra profit. The pub owner later became a pirate, and was also extremely brutal. He often did not keep prisoners but would execute them or sink ships and let the crew drown with them. Besides the two theories mentioned above, there are also many other hypotheses explaining the name. For example, according to Welsh culture, Davy Jones is another name for Saint David, the protector of sailors. Or according to some sources, the name David Jones may come from the prophet Jonah, who disobeyed God's command, causing his entire crew on the ship he was traveling on to be punished. Jonah became a sailor's slang term for someone who brought bad luck. In addition to legends, the name Davy Jones has also been included in literature. The first work believed to mention this name is A New Voyage Round the World by Captain George Roberts. Besides this, we can also find the name Davy Jones in books like King Pest, Bleak House and Treasure Island. Although they didn't want to disappoint the audience, the designer Hal Hickel of the visual effects company Industrial Light and Magic had to confirm that Davy Jones was built entirely with CGI. From his appearance, facial expressions, pale, slimy skin, and even the tentacles, everything was executed extremely detailed and carefully. When the second installment of the pirate franchise premiered, many viewers believed David Jones was the product of thick makeup, but the truth was far different. What we see on screen is entirely constructed by visual effects technology. This is true not only for Jones but also for the entire crew of the Flying Dutchman. However, CGI is just a tool, not magic. Therefore, to create a lifelike David Jones, the producers had to go through many stages of modelling, colouring, and then rendering the film. Designer Hal Hickel also shared that Davy Jones' scenes were often close-ups. Thus, details like wrinkles, expressions, and the movement of the eyes and mouth were extremely important. These seemingly small details are the cues for the audience to understand the character's emotions and the events Jones has experienced in the past. An indispensable part of Jones is his tentacle beard. Like other details, this part was also constructed with CGI technology. Although Jones has many tentacles, they also had to be crafted manually in some scenes to make them as unique as possible. With the original model taken from Blackbeard, a notorious real-life pirate from the late 17th and early 18th centuries, the visual effects specialists created a very rugged beard for David Jones. With the requirement that Jones' 46 tentacles must function both independently and in coordination with each other, they had to be meticulously rendered. The visual designers at ILM had to separate the structure of the tentacles, as you can see in the image, into small cylindrical blocks. This way, when they interacted with each other, the designers could easily see their movements to construct the most complete model. However, it was difficult to imagine how these tentacles would move if they stuck together. Therefore, the producers had to imagine them as if they were wet spaghetti strands sticking to a jacket. It didn't stop there. ILM also pre-built tentacle models with different movements. The purpose of this was to increase the expressiveness of Davy Jones whenever he displayed different emotions. After solving the problem of expressions and facial details, the designers continued to tackle the challenge of Davy Jones' skin color. As a monstrous creature who spends his life at sea, Jones' skin could not be like the other characters. In fact, the captain's skin color was a fortunate discovery for ILM. After finishing his cup of coffee, a designer accidentally noticed the stain on the cup and liked its color. The person immediately scanned the stain, added a few more details, and David Jones got his distinctive skin from a coffee stain. No matter how beautiful the skin or how lifelike the tentacles, David Jones still needed a soul, and that was actor Bill Nighy. To get this role, Bill had to surpass many famous names like Christopher Walken or Ian McKellen. According to his sharing on the unscripted show, our actor received a call from director Gore Verbinski while driving. Director Verbinski told Bill that he wanted David Jones to have a distinct voice. It also had to be masculine and authoritative. The director then suggested several accents such as Dutch and Norwegian. However, this was a bit too much for actor Bill Nighy. He then proposed a Scottish accent to director Verbinski, as his mother grew up in Glasgow, and he could use that accent somewhat. As a result, the director was extremely pleased with Bill's voice, and he got the role. The choice of Bill Nighy for this role was arguably a very wise decision, because despite the difficulty of acting while simultaneously imagining the character in his head, Bill was still able to perform his role well. To help the designers easily complete the Davy Jones character, Bill perfectly conveyed all the necessary movements. For example, you can see in the scene where Jones is playing the organ that Bill had to completely imagine the character's movements to complete the shot. According to visual effects specialist John Knoll, there were always murmurs when Bill acted. Some said the actions were strange, unnatural, and unconvincing to the audience. But both Bill Nighy and director Verbinski knew what they needed to do, and the resulting outcome was truly marvelous and beyond imagination. After obtaining the design models and the soul from Bill Nighy, the final step for ILM was to combine the two. First, Bill Nighy had to be scanned so the designers could capture all his facial contours. Then, they would continue to adjust the pre-built models to fit Bill Nighy's features, such as raising the cheekbones or widening the jaw structure. Davy Jones' original eyes were black, but because our actor has blue eyes, this detail was also changed. As for the actor, he had to apply makeup around his eyes and mouth, along with wearing a grey wool suit, to accommodate a new technology developed by the company called On-Set Motion Capture. With this new technology, technicians could analyze the footage containing Bill Nighy from all angles, from a 2D image. The film crew would reconstruct the actor's actions in 3D space. From there, they would digitize these movements, apply them to the character, and bring the final product to the screen. And thanks to this technology, director Gore Verbinski and the actors could easily reshoot scenes if necessary. At the same time, they could interact with each other or with the environment much more easily. Bill joked that he was really envious of the other actors who got to wear cool pirate costumes every time they came to the set, while he had to wear the grey suit. Next, let's look at Davy Jones' eyes. This is perhaps the detail that director Gore Verbinski focused on the most, because he believed this would be the part of the face that the audience concentrates on the most. Bill's eyes were used to replace the old design, partly for this reason. Additionally, the actor also possesses an extremely expressive face. Therefore, the designers had to divide Bill's face into 700 small parts, so that whenever he displayed different emotions, they could modify and change every smallest detail to clarify the expressions. And after all the shots were completed, the final step was simply to replace Bill's image with Davy Jones. Thanks to the silent contributions of the designers from Industrial Light and Magic, the general audience was able to witness a creature that was both bizarre and incredibly realistic. Thanks to this excellent product, the Pirates of the Caribbean sequel won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects in 2006 and received another nomination for the same category in 2007. From the legends, Davy Jones stepped onto the screen and immediately captured the audience's love with his strange, impressive appearance and a thrilling story. Although the pirate films later saw the appearance of other memorable villains, such as Blackbeard or Captain Salazar, Davy Jones' place will likely be hard to shake. Did we miss any interesting information about the captain of the Flying Dutchman? Which villain do you want to see the film page bring to you next? Comment below and let us know. Okay, thank you all for watching today's video and see you in the next one. Bye bye.